It's been attributed to Benjamin Franklin to have said the expression that nothing in life is certain except death and taxes. That phrase has been quoted and adapted and changed by countless different people. And no matter who actually said it first, and no matter what specific words were really used, it's true. At least the death side of it. Death is inevitable for every person. And death is an interesting thing. It's as natural a part of life as birth is, but it's something that we all fight to avoid and we run from at great lengths. For some people, we run from it by avoiding certain activities, or maybe by doing certain things, or by putting certain safety things in place so that certain activities don't cause us to die. Or maybe it's not even doing things specifically or intentionally to avoid death, but sometimes we do things in life to kind of avoid the things that show us getting closer to death. What I mean is sometimes we do some health things to try and slow down or stop the aging process. Maybe it's the way that we look and we do things so we don't look like we're getting closer and closer to death. Sometimes we do things physically so that we don't feel like we're getting closer, or we don't slow down in that way. We do all these different things to try and avoid death. Well, today we're in our third week of our Ecclesiastes series. Last week we had the chance to see what the teacher told us and instructed us about our relationships. And today we're going to take another look at some of the important teachings that the teacher has for us, but more about death. And as we continue to learn from the teacher, I think there's some important lessons for us to pull from this. So if you have your Bibles, go ahead and get them out, whether it's your digital copy on your phone or your tablet, or even a print copy, and we'll even have the text up on the screen for you, as we always do. But go ahead and head to Ecclesiastes chapter 9 is where we're going to pick up and see what the teacher has to say for us today. And we're going to pick up in verse 2. It says this: "All share a common destiny, the righteous and the wicked, the good and the bad, the clean and the unclean, those who offer sacrifices and those who do not. As it is with the good, so with the sinful. As it is with those who take oaths, so with those who are afraid to take them. This is the evil in everything that happens under the sun. The same destiny overtakes all." Mark Twain once said that life would be infinitely happier if we could be born at age 80 and gradually move towards 18. It was in 1513 that Ponce de Leon claimed to have found the Fountain of Youth in what we now know as St. Augustine, Florida. And since the 1860s, it's become a tourist spot where for $20 you can go in and see the Fountain of Youth, and you can even get a cup full of the water from the Fountain of Youth and take a sip of it. You can even shop in their gift shop now. And of course, these things have become nothing more than just tourist spots, places that people can go and out of curiosity see what they're all about, but they're really not real things. Even in 1989, my favorite Indiana Jones movie was released. It was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And in this movie, they were searching for the Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail was supposed to be this cup that supposedly Jesus used at the Last Supper. And it even was said to have caught some of the blood of Jesus' crucifixion. And if you found this cup, and if you drank from it, then somehow it would give you immortality. And while those all make for interesting stories and maybe good movies and things like that, or even a good vacation spot, none of them are true. You see, what the teacher is trying to help us understand here in Ecclesiastes is that no one escapes death. No one does. Every year, whenever we get to the end of the year, right when we get up close to New Year's, a lot of times the news organizations will start doing these look back over the year, and they'll kind of see who was it that had passed away celebrity-wise over the past year. And it's kind of interesting because whenever I watch these, sometimes I'll see these things and I'll think, man, I totally forgot that this person had passed away or whatever. Here's some of the ones that passed away this last year. Larry King, talk show host, passed away on January 23rd at the age of 87. Prince Philip, the husband of the Queen of England, passed away on April 9th at the age of 99. Charlie Watts, the drummer of the Rolling Stones, passed away on August 24th at the age of 80. Norm Macdonald, comedian and TV and movie star, passed away in September at age 61. And even Betty White, comedian and TV and movie star, passed away on December 31st at the age of 99. And there were many, many other celebrity and even ones who were not celebrities passed away this past year. And all these people, whether they were prominent and influential people or even just people who nobody knew their name really, all of them came to a point where either naturally or even some not naturally, all of them came to a point where they breathed their last breath. And every single one of us, one day, unless Jesus comes back to take us home, you and I, all of us, will one day die as well. In Hebrews 9:27, the author says, people are destined to die. In Genesis 3:19, God said, for dust you are, and to dust you will return. No matter how hard we try, we can't avoid it. But also, no matter how good we are in life, or even how bad we are in life, all of us are going to die. Sometimes when someone that we love passes away, or maybe it's someone that we really respect, when they pass away, we might say things like, why does God always take the good ones? And I understand why we say this, but I think it has a wrong idea, because behind this idea and these statements that we make, it kind of has this assumption that God arbitrarily decides and picks which people are going to die throughout life, and that God has an active role in every single person's death. And sure, God does make that decision sometimes, and God has the power, and truthfully, He even has the authority to decide who will die. But not every single person dies by the active will of God. We even see Lazarus, Jesus' friend, when he passed away, how Jesus was so upset about this and how he wept over Lazarus' tomb. But if we put all this aside, and if we really examine death, we recognize that the bottom line is that you and I are all going to pass away one day. And because of this truth, this is what the teacher of Ecclesiastes wants us to get as we pick up now in verse 4. He says, anyone who is among the living has hope. Even a live dog is better off than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward, and even their name is forgotten. Their love, their hate, and their jealousy have long since vanished. Never again will they have a part in anything that happens under the sun. That opening line there in that passage, even a live dog is better off than a dead lion. What the teacher, I think, is trying to get us to understand and grab a hold of is that we need to take advantage of life. You and I, we need to take advantage of this life. He says that the living, they know that they'll die. But many times, even though we know this truth, even though we know the fact that every person is going to die, I think many times we kind of put it out of our minds and we forget about it, and we in some ways kind of go on living as if we're going to live forever and as if we're never going to pass away. But if we remember and we accept this difficult truth, and we recognize that only when we are alive can we enjoy the things of life, then I think it should motivate us to take advantage of life. In fact, the teacher is going to go on here in the next few verses, and he's going to kind of get very specific with his encouragements and kind of helps us to see what I think are three different ways that we can take advantage of our life, that we can kind of celebrate some things. The first one we see in verse 7 now. Go eat your food with gladness and drink your wine with a joyful heart, for God has already approved what you do. Always be clothed in white and always anoint your head with oil. The teacher right here, he's calling us to celebrate life. And now this isn't a license to sin. This isn't saying just go eat till you're sick or go drink till you're wasted. No, but it's an encouragement that we should enjoy life, and we should enjoy the blessings that God gives us in life and the things that make life full. I've talked about this before, but too many times, so many people can think that following God or being a Christian is all about giving up fun, and that God doesn't want us to be happy. He just wants us to be sad and miserable, and that He steals away all of our fun. In fact, there are some Christians that it seems like that's kind of how they live their life, that they're just grumpy all the time. They're just mean. They're just fussing and upset about every little thing all the time. That's probably because they've forgotten that God wants them to celebrate life. God doesn't want them to just empty themselves of all enjoyment. The teacher is kind of saying, look, God gave you a stomach, so enjoy your food and your drink. He made these sensations that you have, so enjoy the experiences that bring about pleasure and enjoyment. And yes, it can be taken too far, like anything in life. So often God gives us good things in life, and yeah, we take it too far and we turn it into something that God never meant for it to be. Sure, we can do that, but it doesn't mean that we should then avoid all things of enjoyment. So, go and enjoy a good meal if that's what you want. Go and enjoy a drink if that's your thing. You see, there are some things I think we can get so worked up about and try and pull the enjoyment out of life, and really there's no prohibition in the Bible for any of those things. Instead, we should find ways to enjoy and celebrate life. The teacher goes on now in verse 9. He says, enjoy life with your wife, whom you love, all the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun, all your meaningless days. And of course, he has to kind of throw in there the meaningless talk. But I think the second thing that he wants us to celebrate here, not only to celebrate our life, but the teacher wants us to celebrate love. Those of you who have lost a spouse, you know this truth all too well, and you would probably echo and encourage this for every single married couple, to make the most of every moment you have with your wife or your husband, because you don't know when it will be over. To take time together, to enjoy life together, to enjoy each other. And don't take this precious time, the presence of your spouse, don't take it for granted, but instead to celebrate the love that God has given you. I love what Paul says in Ephesians 5:28. He says, in the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. And I think this analogy that Paul uses of loving our spouses as our own bodies, I think it's so appropriate, because sometimes we can become very guilty of kind of focusing on ourselves in our lives. And even in our relationships, we can be very one-sided with what we want in our relationship and what we want to experience and the things that we're going through and how this makes me feel and what I think about what my spouse is doing. We can get so one-sided with it, and the relationship can become very one-sided in that way, until they're gone, and then it's almost like we've lost a part of ourselves. And so we should celebrate love and celebrate the love that we have in our life, and then to love the people who are in our lives for as long as we can, and even beyond our marriage relationships, the friendships, the family we have in our life. We should take advantage of every bit of experience with those people to celebrate the love and the relationships that we have in life. But then one last thing that the teacher, I think, calls us to celebrate. Let's look back now again in verse 9. It says, for this is your lot in life, and in your toilsome labor under the sun. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. For in the realm of the dead where you are going, there is neither working, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom. This last thing that the teacher calls us to celebrate, he calls us to celebrate life. He calls us to celebrate love. But I think this last thing that we're called to celebrate, in a way, might kind of surprise you. And that is that he calls us to celebrate our labor. To celebrate the fact that we can work, that we can put effort into things and do these things, that we have the abilities and the aptitude and the interest and the opportunity to work. You know, sometimes we can look at work as more of an annoyance, right? Sometimes we can look at it as a thing that we just don't want to do. Now, sure, within every single job, every career, there are things that we wish we didn't have to do. There are some things in every single job description that we would love to erase or maybe hand off to someone else. I'm sure we could all probably come up with a few different things that we wish we didn't have to do. Even if you're doing your dream job, there are still things that we wish we didn't have in our job. But friends, we need to see our work as a privilege, and even see the things that come from our work as a privilege and a blessing. Maybe it's the paycheck you get. Not only can that be a blessing and provide for your family, but the paycheck you earn in your job could also be a blessing and a ministry to other people and help meet other people's needs in your life and maybe people you're going to encounter. Or even the relationships that you develop with other people within your work. The people you get to know that you're working with. These are opportunities to love people, to minister to them, to pray for them, to meet their needs. Or even the work itself. The things that you do, you may be meeting a very important need in someone else's life all in the work that you're doing. And the teacher is saying we need to celebrate this work while we have this in our life. Paul says this in Colossians 3:23. He says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. I can remember my very first job that I had. Do you remember your first job? If you do remember your first job, do me a favor, put it down in the chat. Tell us what you had as your very first job. I think it'd be kind of interesting to see some of those things. But my very first job is I was a pizza cook at Pizza Hut. And I wasn't very good at it because I wasn't very fast. I was the kind of the guy that we had these pictures that would kind of show what the pizza was supposed to look like after we kind of assembled all the toppings and stuff. And I was very meticulous about it. You know, I wanted it to look just like the picture, and I was kind of slow about it. Whereas the other guys I was working with, they were just slapping them together, throwing it in the oven, and getting them out there as fast as you can, which is what you should do on a Friday night, you know, when the business is cranking in and you need to get the pizzas out of there. But I was really meticulous about it. And after I worked at Pizza Hut for, I don't know, about a year or so, I worked at Winn-Dixie at a grocery store. And at first I was a bag boy, and then I was a stockman and a couple other jobs like that there. And even when I went off to college, I had some different jobs. I worked at the university there. At first I worked on their grounds department, and I mowed grass, and I helped clean and fix things. And then I worked for the admissions department, all these different kinds of jobs. I would say that none of those jobs were really all that overly exciting. But all of them, every single one of those jobs, they were all opportunities for God. I had opportunities to meet people. I had opportunities to learn people's stories. I had opportunities to help people, to pray for people, to share with them my faith, to help them understand why I trusted in God with my life, why I wanted them to do the same thing. And you see, this work that you're doing in your life, whether you're working right now or whatever it might be, you're not doing it for a paycheck. And you're not doing it for a boss. You're not working even for a client. No, everything that we do, we should see it as working for God. Well, let's wrap up our passage in Ecclesiastes now. In verse 11, it says this, I have seen something else under the sun. The race is not to the swift, or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favor to the learned. But time and chance happen to them all. Moreover, no one knows when their hour will come. As fish are caught in a cruel net, or birds taken in a snare, so people are trapped by evil times, and they fall unexpectedly upon them. This last part, I think, is probably the most sobering part for all of us. And that is the fact that no one knows their time. No one knows the time when their life will end. We just don't. And there are so many factors that can go into this fact that we don't know when our life will end. Whether it's things that are happening within our health that we don't know about. You know, maybe you've experienced something like that. I've had many friends who have had heart attacks at age 40, and you know, you would think they're in great shape and young enough that they shouldn't have issues like that, but they do, and some of them just barely avoid death. Maybe you've gone to a doctor's appointment for one thing, and while the doctor is checking you out about one thing, he discovers something else, which then leads to the effort to try and cure that thing that could have taken your life. But maybe it's also not a thing that you don't know about health-wise. Maybe it's a poor decision on your part. Maybe it's you making a decision that you shouldn't have. Maybe doing something like driving while you're impaired, or driving while you're tired, and you convince yourselves, I'll be fine doing this. I'm okay. I can do this just fine. But then the results are catastrophic because of that poor decision. Or maybe it's not even your own decision. Maybe it's the foolishness of someone else. Driving down the road and someone else who is texting or drunk hits you. I mean, who knows what it could be? There's so many things that go into this fact that we just don't know when our life will end. This is why James says in James 4:13, he says, Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Or in Psalm 39, verse 5, you have made my days a mere handbreadth. The span of my years is nothing before you. Everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure. I mean, that last sentence there, that even those who seem secure, that can be all of us at times. I think sometimes in life we can very quickly forget just how fragile and how short-lived life can be. And I think we can go about life and treat it in a way that, in a very cavalier way, and we forget just how fragile it is. I don't know if you've ever kind of treated things in your life and not as fragile as you should have. I can remember years ago, I had a number of things to carry in to my house from my car, and one of those things was my tablet, was my iPad. And I kind of loaded up my arms, and I stuck my tablet under my arm, and I carrying things in, and I got almost to the garage, and for some reason, I guess I wasn't thinking about it, and I let my arm out a little bit, and iPad slipped out and hit the concrete driveway, and of course, shattered the screen. And $100 later, I had my iPad back and the screen repaired, but still scratched and dented up and things like that. But that's how we treat life sometimes. We kind of carelessly and don't really think very much about it, just kind of go through life, and we don't treat life as a very fragile thing, and we're almost very flippant about it. And sometimes by us not treating it in a fragile way, we don't remember just how precious and important every single moment is. Friends, we need to recognize that we have a limited amount of time here in life. One of my favorite movies is Dead Poets Society. And in this movie, Robin Williams plays a teacher at a boys' school. And when he's there, early on in the movie, one of the first days of class, he takes his students out to the foyer of the school there. And in the foyer, there are these different trophy cases. And there are these trophies and pictures of previous sports teams, of soccer teams, basketball teams, baseball teams. And Williams, his character, he tells the students, he says, if you listen, boys, if you lean in real close and you listen, you can hear these men of years past whispering their encouragement to you. And so he says, lean in and listen. And so they kind of lean towards the pictures, and they're kind of thinking, what's going on? They're listening, and Robin Williams, his character, begins to whisper, seize the day, boys. Make every day of your life count. You see, I think in many ways, the writer, the teacher of Ecclesiastes is saying the same thing to us. And we need to lean in and listen and pay attention to what he's saying, that we need to seize the day. We need to make the most of our life, make the most of what God has given us, to live life to the fullest, to celebrate life and enjoy what God has given us, to celebrate love and the relationships that we have while we have them, even to celebrate the work and the privilege it is to do things and to serve God in that way. Friends, I want to encourage you, live every single day like it's your last one. Live every single moment like it's your last one. We're not promised the next breath. We need to celebrate and live life to its fullest.